1, episode number 17, HYPEWORKS podcast. Gentle reminder for the audience, I'm Alex.
I'm Jake.
Cool. It's been a while. It's been a while since...
need this reminder.
Man, it's been a while. How many weeks has it been? 2 weeks.
I mean, does Joe Rogan get on and go, I'm Joe Rogan?
Yeah, but he's got, how many million subs, to be fair.
Fair point.
It's been busy. We've been really busy in the last few weeks, so hence why we haven't been super active since the Chad episode, but all good.
That was a great episode, by the way.
It was.
He really unpacked that go-to-market strategy for startups.
Yeah, he's a cool dude, that guy. His career and stuff, it's really interesting what he's done. And if you haven't seen that episode, go back and watch it. It's the last one.
Totally.
But here we are. We were in Singapore recently. We went to a conference. You did a talk, Jake. It was very interesting. I think it went well.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
I don't do it for extrinsic reward. I do it because I enjoy imparting my knowledge on the world. It's like I get excited by topics, and I'm excited by this one. So it's like, here's what you need to know if you want to survive. I think that was generally part of the core argument that I was making. It was like, you need to get on board with the speed of AI automation. Otherwise, you'll get left behind, because it's one thing to use AI in like a circumstance like ChatGPT, Midjourney, DALL-E, but it's another thing to be able to automate that as a process so that it runs efficiently for you.
Yeah.
At that point, your efficiency to execute certain tasks is only limited by the computing power of the AI, not by your time.
Yeah. And we're still super early, right? You think most people aren't kind of on board with it?
I think this is the start of the wave. I think people who even think they're up to date are not up to date with the hardcore community on the open AI hardcore forum. On their actual forum, the community is growing. There's a lot of people that also develop for it. It's a new wave, and even the technology of what has been integrated into, people have integrated the technology in there for certain use cases, but even behind the scenes, they'll be able to use the OpenAI modules to automate other business processes that you won't be able to even see as a consumer.
Plugins was a big one. I think plugins could be the one that it could be the App Store, right?
Well, it's not just the plugins. I think it's also things like, the automations that, that we were talking about in the conference, right? So that it writes all my social media posts for me. It's like, you wouldn't know that was an AI, even if you, for example, let's take Slack. Slack has had ChatGPT integrations, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that the business of Slack hasn't automated certain processes internally with, coding like Python and ChatGPT to maybe write emails, maybe write blogs. That might be all automated as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it was interesting to kind of hear the reaction from people in the room, because I think, most of these guys, they've probably heard of ChatGPT, but they've never probably used it realistically. A lot of those people.
I'm not sure. We had a show of hands, I think, a couple of times in that presentation, and I was shocked by the first question for context I asked was, does anybody know anybody who's been replaced by AI? Yeah. There's maybe one or two people in the room. There's maybe 150 people to 200 people in the room. And I was shocked that it was only two, to be honest. But maybe I'm also in a position where I feel like, because I'm actually automating through OpenAI, processes within businesses, for example, writing automating blog writing processes, automating content creation processes, so that you have this end-to-end service as opposed to, having to manually schedule posts. It's automated. It's like, okay, the software reads from this blog. It filters that information into an OpenAI model. The OpenAI model takes the information and, rearranges it within a certain set of parameters that I have set. And it's then fired onto a blog or through the social media. It's the full end-to-end ecosystem. And that's just one contextual case of social media as well, not to get too far off the point. But it's not like it just has to pertain to social media. It could be doing PR. It could be doing, again, blog writing. It could be, it could be doing your finances for you. Like, the application is unlimited. That's what people really need to take away, because I think some people as well within the audience, it's not that I think that they hadn't used ChatGPT. It's more a case of how it's used. It's always the same with like even high level marketing strategy, right? We could have a great idea, but the devil's in the detail. It's about the finesse of the execution that's important. Yeah, it's the same with the automations. People, I'm not saying names here, but some people have said, it's easy. You can do that with a few tools. No, it looks easy, but the skill is in setting the parameters within the automation to output a fairly accurate and consistent response that's even varied enough to continually engage audiences. Yeah. To have something that's accurate and consistent, but also varied, is a very hard thing to achieve. You need to really spend a long time setting the parameters for that kind of AI automation. Otherwise, it will give you something that's consistent, but it's boring. It's predictable, but we've heard it before.
It's like Excel came along, right? Before Excel, everything was done on paper, calculators, manually. And then Excel came along, and it's like, okay, I need to know formulas in order to generate, the right kind of spreadsheet. It's a tool.
Right, exactly.
You got to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
So, in relation to that, how do you feel? This is the first kind of in-person thing, in a long time. How do you feel that dynamic was, an in-person event, conference?
Yeah, amazing. It was great to be in a conference environment. It was great just to meet people face to face and have discussions. All kinds of discussions, really, about different industries. That was very important as well. I forgot how much insight could be gained and shared across industry, that this particular industry has a way of working and this particular industry might have a way of working. And these ideas are shared by, certain people. Some ideas are not contested. All of it. Yeah. It was
because, the business argument now, after COVID, companies are going to say, why should I, spend $5,000 for a plane ticket, a hotel, all the transport? Why should I spend all this money just to go to a conference for a day or two? That would be the counter argument, right?
Everyone's got their reasons, right?
Yeah.
Some people, for me, I like the intellectual pursuit. Okay. So the reason that I like going is I like the intellectual pursuit. So we're going to have the discussions. We're going to talk about the technology. Yeah. We're going to talk about the application. Some people, though, will come to me and say, hey, can you help me? So there's almost an element of I don't go for the lead generation. Mm-hmm. I don't go for the lead generation, but, some people obviously go for lead gen. Some people also go to meet people for, opportunities within their own field or work. Some people go to get their name out there. Everyone's got their reasons. So I think that the offline space offers a multitude of reasons. One of the reasons might be because in an online space, it's very hard to convey, with long format, nuanced communication, physical communication as much as verbal communication. So, no, I think that it was a great experience, and we'll go to more.
Yeah, and Hong Kong this week, there's a bunch of people coming in here for crypto events. Seems to be it's going to be busy. So, Yeah, I mean, offline it is expensive, but like you say, like nothing can replace offline. Zoom doesn't replace offline. All these kind of teleconferencing type things, it doesn't replace that vibe.
But again, it's that in-person human experience that is often missed. So I think it was awesome. I will go to another one.
Yeah, nice. In terms of like Singapore, just to finish up on that part, like, what's your thoughts? First time I've been there in a while, actually. No thoughts.
I mean, it's down to personal taste how I answer this question.
Yeah.
I mean, Singapore is Singapore. Like, it's got its good and bad, like every other place. Yeah. What is there to say?
I mean, there is a reason why these cities host the conferences, right? Hong Kong, Singapore. They're very modern, efficient. They have the conference venue, the hotels. Like, they're kind of built for business. So
they are.
Yeah. It does make sense why it's held there a bit.
I mean, Singapore specifically, it really feels like it's built for business.
Yeah.
You walk around the streets and you feel like you're inside a corporation.
You do actually, yeah. It's quite funny.
Including me, right? Everybody's wearing trousers, shoes, belts, shirts. It's, it's a particular vibe.
It is. But I think it's an acquired taste. I'm not sure. We've talked about this. Like, I'm not sure it's very clinical.
Exactly. It is clinical, but again, I can understand why people might want to live there. I can understand why some people wouldn't want to live there. I also know where. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying that I would never live there. To be honest, it's not a place. But I feel like it's not a place I could live forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So what's the next conference we're going to go to?
That's a great question, Alex. MWC Shanghai. I mean, that's not really a conference. That's more like an exhibition.
Yeah. So. Computex is the one I'm doing. I think that's going to be fun. Taipei. Yeah. No, I do miss them. It's actually, like you say, like it's the program is the program, right? There's a lineup every conference, speakers, la. But it's that kind of networking after conference. Like, that's when you can really dive into stuff, talk to people. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, the thing with the dive into stuff that I always find challenging within conferences is, sometimes people will share different perspectives on things. I'm not saying me personally, though. It's like, obviously that's going to happen to everybody, right? If you go to those places and you have an opinion that, regardless of whether anybody thinks you're wrong or right, you have the opinion, you say it, somebody might not agree. So that for me, that's like the challenging part of conferences. It's like, again, people that would go look at the explanation and the automation of AI content creation and say, oh, it's easy. I can do that in DALL-E. It's like, okay, well, if you think that way, there's no point in having a conversation.
Why do you think people, like, when you talk to people, like when I go on Twitter and stuff, and when you talk to people, they have a negative opinion of conferences. Like, they say, I can't be asked going there. It's going to be boring. Like Davos, when you mention Davos, everyone's like, oh, this is like a gathering of elites. Like, generally speaking, there seems to be quite a negative opinion of these things. Don't know. Expensive, like, get sick. Again, people drag their feet sometimes with conferences.
It's priorities and what you want to get out of it, So that defines the value.
Yeah. You ran conferences before. Like, is that something you kind of look forward to doing again?
No.
Or no?
I mean, I've had my days in the conference industry, and I did have a few throwbacks, like a few flashbacks in there. I felt for the conference organizer, having been in that position where, there's a lot of pressure in conference organizing because you've got this, few months worth of timeline that comes down to a few hours in a day. everything. There's a schedule. So I have a lot of respect for people in the conference industry, and it's a fun industry to be in, to be honest with you. Or at least it was back in the day when I was in it. So it was no, I do not miss it. I mean, never say never that I wouldn't organize an event, okay, because I would 100%. Like, I like events enough to organize them. So I will be a conference organizer in some sense, but would I ever, I don't know, maybe I'd do marketing within the industry, but I wouldn't specifically set up an events business.
What about if you're a brand? Would you, so say you had two options, right? You had the chance to attend a big conference with worldwide exposure, lots of opportunities, or running your own conference, running your own event. Which one do you think is more beneficial for like a smaller brand or a growing brand?
It depends on your growth cycle and your go-to-market strategy, really, like where your target audiences are.
Yeah.
If you are, I mean, again, what's the intention here? Like, what's the brand do? I mean, is the brand an events company, or is the brand a digital marketing agency? Do you think?
You're selling something like a product, service, because like a lot of these brands, like we talked about Gymshark the other day, like they got their start by attending a big fitness conference. That's how they kickstarted their growth,
right?
And obviously now they have their own events. We Live the City, right? Their own marketing events.
Yeah, I mean, there's value in both, but they're different, right? So the latter, such as organizing your own event, is more like some sort of community base. Like it should be built on something that aligns with either your business objective. So, for example, if you were a software as a service company, and this happens, by the way, you might want an event to be able to sell to an exclusive pool of delegates. That could be one style of event, a conference, right? Another style could be like this, shared knowledge. And again, it's like, well, how does that affect the brand position, and what's the purpose? Is it there to attract brands to your digital marketing agency conference to be able to lead gen off them? Maybe that's one of the motivations. I think that's where it gets tricky, to be honest with you, because again, most people don't go to conferences to be sold to, even though, spoiler alert, it's the 2B side that generates probably more revenue within the events industry than the 2C side. The delegate sales are nowhere near as high as the sponsorship sales the vast majority of the time. Yeah,
and so say like these conferences, like what's the one, like what's the hook that gets brands to attend? Like is it the speakers? Is it the audience? Like, is there one thing that really attracts brands? Like,
this is the trade secrets of
like,
event organization.
Yeah, exactly.
But, it's to make right. If you look at the lineup of the vast majority of these events and conferences all over the world, they'll have big brands on there: Shell, McDonald's, Nike, whatever. They want the biggest, most well-known, recognizable. SAP are sponsoring this. Oracle are sponsoring this. IBM
every conference website, right? Logos. Get the logos.
Exactly. Get the big logos out, and it works because that's kind of, people want to hear from the big brands with their case study. I think that's one thing, but from an events organization point of view, you need those brands, but you also want interesting people within those brands, because there's different, styles of presentation. Some people put different levels of energy and effort into it. So that is one aspect of it.
Yeah. To be honest, like I just go to conferences that really, just that interest me, like that's the ones I go to. Just if it's an interest to me, core interest, then I just go. I'm not a kind of guy that just goes to random conferences. Don't know.
Yeah,
some people do though, right? We know people that do. They go to every conference going. They have their own agenda, I guess.
Right, exactly. Everyone's got their own reasons. So I don't know, but you want to hear from people that you think aren't going to sell to you. That's the core message of what I was trying to explain. So brands are not going to try and sell software at the audience, okay? No. But independent agencies will take the opportunity to pitch products or services to a room full of brands that might need those products and services to streamline their operations, right? So as a conference organizer, you look for people in brands that are not salespeople, okay? They're not like solutions providers. The reason is as well is because if you have those speakers speak for free and they sell something, then you've missed a potential revenue opportunity, because those are the types of companies that will pay to speak to this kind of audience.
It's a weird balance, right? Like they're trying to balance like how do you say, like the value with the commercial. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you want to maximize the amount of like commercial opportunity, right? Whether that's either in your like 2B sponsorship sales or your 2C delegate sales, like you have to maximize it. So the delegates are going to want to be surrounded by people not selling things to them. And the sponsors, they also want limited competition, and they're prepared to pay money for that.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's a simple but effective business model.
Yeah, it seems to be coming back in a big way anyway. Now we're in 2023. Just circling back on AI tools, like what's hot right now in AI tools? Like apart from ChatGPT-4,
I feel like that's the secrets right now. You know,
you don't want to divulge.
I recently got a ChatGPT-4 and was also able to get buy-in on the OpenAI module. So, newsflash, maybe it didn't affect people in the US or the UK, but for a lot of people all over the world, they don't have access to ChatGPT-3. They don't have access to ChatGPT-4. Okay, like I don't think people in Hong Kong have access, right? You can tell us.
We need VPN.
There you go. Okay, so a lot of people don't know that there isn't across the world, there isn't an equal opportunity to utilize this technology, and the longer and further it goes on, my personal take, is the more that the market will be segmented by how much you're prepared to pay. There's already that ChatGPT-4 Plus, and I'm sure that even though a lot of people have paid it, a lot of people now will go, well, I don't understand it, so I'm going to unsubscribe, right? So like your everyday Joe that might be in a trade job, might have been excited by it, bought it, but doesn't utilize it, or doesn't utilize it enough to justify $20 a month, because to a lot of people, that's a lot of money, you know? So I don't know. So I have got Plus, and I have got all the access to the models again in the OpenAI, which is good because I lost some of those models in the last few weeks, and I've got automations that are set up on top of them. So I had to rewrite a lot of automations to utilize different OpenAI language modules. Which, do
you think my impression is like because the US is at the forefront in terms of the developers, the tools, the all the data centers, and like they seem to be. Do you think it's going to be another US centric tech stack?
Well, I would say this, right? So this starts to almost come into my political perspective as well.
That's okay. We don't mind a bit of politics.
Right now, the world is going through this, like, we went through globalization and now we're going through decoupling. But it doesn't mean that certain areas of the world don't continue to globalize within their own region. So I think it's more or less going to be like a Western. This tool is going to be used for the West and limited to countries that may pose an economic challenge in the future, such as Thailand, such as Vietnam, such as even Singapore, probably. Hong Kong, obviously its proximity to China means that it's also blacklisted. China in itself, like people are tunneling now, to other nations like Taiwan, probably with their internet, like routers, setting up virtual routers so that they can access the OpenAI to utilize it in China. Even tools like Chinese tools like Feishu, what do they call it outside of China?
Lark.
Yeah, I've integrated ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Notion, Slack. You've already mentioned all the plugins. It's crazy. I mean, it's just mental.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel... Yeah, I just think it's going to be another... The breakout companies are probably going to be US, realistically. In terms of tools and... Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there'll be competitors being made right now all over the world in various locations.
Yeah. But I do see a lot of the digital nomad guys, like we talked about in, Bangkok or, Bali or whatever. They're churning out these like one-man band, like photo editing apps, like audio apps that use AI, ChatGPT. There is a big kind of indie developer community, I think.
100%. Like these people are realizing what I'm saying in my presentations. It's not just about utilization of AI. It's about how do you automate it to create a new tool that can make your stuff hyper efficient. If that tool is connect the APIs of Google Sheets to ChatGPT to Twitter, so that I can write something random and say, turn this into an amusing tweet with background information, prompt, boom, and it gets fired out of Twitter every time I just write a thought into that Google Sheets. Like, that's possible now. It's very easy to do now.
Yeah.
What's difficult is to make it read the parameters to, again, output varied and interesting information consistently.
Yeah. What do you think about the downside? Like I keep before Trump got arrested, I saw all these pictures of Trump being arrested. Do you think that's a viable concern, like all the fakes and potential for, I'm trying to think of a good word. Yeah, faking shit, like just...
Yeah, I think that poses a real threat. I mean, there's already people creating tools that will differentiate between what is AI and what is not. To be honest, the blockchain is going to come into this at some point to say, was this artifact created by a human or a machine? And that's kind of scary because I can't remember where I heard a story about that someone had programmed ChatGPT, and ChatGPT or like an OpenAI module, I can't remember exactly. I'm not sure if this was true. This might be just, again, fake shit that people put out on the internet.
Yeah.
That this had hired somebody from TaskRabbit or Fiverr to fill the capture in for them. Now, I don't know whether that's true. For me, that's like next level, maybe a bit
crazy,
of science fiction. But if that is, for me at least, I'm not going to put it out of the realm of possibility because the space is moving that fast.
True. Can you imagine, like, if there was a day when we could say, like, we have podcast notes for every podcast, right? If we could feed the podcast notes into some AI that could record a whole podcast episode with, like, literally ourselves, almost like 100% correct, like in terms of the facial, like all that stuff. Like, how wild would that be? It's possible.
I think we're going to get there.
Yeah.
Within like 10 years, easy. Within 5.
That's kind of wild, right?
2 to 3.
Yeah.
That's how quick things are moving.
Do you think, like, what kind of level of nuance? Do you think, like, it could be like, like, could the could the AI like make jokes? Could it like, it
can already make jokes.
Yeah, no,
it's honestly
mind-boggling.
I tried to. This was the thing at the conference, right? Where I was scared a little bit that I sounded alarmist.
Yeah,
because people I didn't want to look at, like, people were looking at me like, oh, this is like alarmist, But I was like, no, like if you're working in this space, like if you start to understand how to automate the AI to perform your mundane tasks for you, you can really see the application of the technology in so many different domains, because it's the understanding of how to program the machine to get from A to B that is more important than, I guess, the understand, well, no, I guess is equally as important as understanding the application,
Yeah.
because that is still a transferable skill. You might not,
Yeah.
like, I guess, like, for example, in the digital space, I can write really strict parameters, okay, because I understand how to create, like, assets or ads or whatever it might be. So I can give it really strict parameters. A beginner might not be able to do that. However, a beginner could also write into that prompt using the best practice as given by Facebook, copy and paste Facebook's best practice, create imagery within this set of parameters. Again, they've caught up on 10 years of industry experience in 30 seconds just by asking ChatGPT the right question. You can write that into your automation script to fill those gaps that you lack in experience. That's what's so amazing about it. That's why people should be alarmed, because it's not only do I have the capability to wipe out an entire social media team now, which I do, because I can write scripts for content creation on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, okay? Mm-hmm. So I can already do that, but I can also automate now if this happens, or if email has word invoice in it, do this and put it in this tool for me, or create a record within this spreadsheet. So it can automate, the treasury. So now I'm starting to replace my, finance team. It might be able to, you could ask it to sort through CVs and look for keywords.
I was talking to someone this week about the Shein and all the models, like, how that happens right now. Obviously, they have to hire a model, they go to a studio, they do a shoot. That could be replaced, all the creative, all the assets.
Yeah, right. It could be automated.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you can automate that. Do this once a month on this date. When this happens, do this. And when that happens, do this. Like, you can start to automate everything.
Yeah.
That's again, the alarmist point of the conference, that it was like your social media team.
It's kind of like, it's probably like what it's probably like the music industry and the newspaper industry back in the day. Like they were told like that, digital was going to replace news and music. And they probably would have said, nah, that's not going to happen. And then along came Napster, and along came, like Amazon, and like the iPod just killed whole industries.
Exactly. We are going through some sort of like content creation revolution here. And the barrier to entry is really how much time do you invest into learning how to do this? Because even if I wanted to code in Python, right, I can now ask ChatGPT to code that script in Python. So it's like this is the biggest equalizer there's ever been. And if people can't see that, then they're the ones missing out, because I guess that's another point from the conference was that if you don't adopt this, you will be left behind, and we're going to be managers of AI, not operational managers. We're not going to actually perform tasks. We're going to do the task.
It is hard though. Like this happens every time there's new technology, right? It's hard to tell social media managers, PR people, graphic designers that they have to give up what they're doing, right? Like if they love what they're doing.
Give up, though.
I know, but do you know what I mean? Like they have to change. They have to change, adapt. Yeah, it's hard.
Learn something new,
Right. It's hard though. Human nature is creatures of habit, They want to do what they're doing. If they enjoy it, a lot of people won't. A lot of people won't do it.
Yeah, it's, again, and they're the people that will be left behind in this content creation revolution.
Speaking of Python, good segue, websites. So we're currently developing our own website. It's 2023. Things have moved on a lot in the last few years about websites. We used to use Wix. We still do use Wix. We're currently playing around with WordPress. What's your thoughts on developing websites and websites in general, 2023?
Yeah. I mean, probably the same as you, in a sense. Like, you've developed websites and built websites on WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, etc., the same as me, and I know what the benefits and the pros and cons for each one of those tools is. And I'll say it here and now, actually. Save yourself a lot of time, everybody. Don't use Squarespace for anything.
Well, we have a disagreement there.
A little bit, but it's expensive and it's not very customizable. They're my biggest issues with it. Whereas I think Wix is a bit more flexible, and I think is a little bit better.
The old argument was hosted versus self-hosted. So we're moving from hosted to self-hosted. Like we have our own server now. We're going to develop our own thing.
I mean, you're talking about one website though. Like I don't know.
Well, in general, the old argument was, basically giving someone some money and letting them host it and letting them update it and all that stuff versus having your own website and server. It's still an ongoing argument with a lot of people.
Yeah, and I hope that drill gets phased out of. Can you hear that?
I can play some music, random sound. No, I mean,
we'll have to mute that.
I think, and it's same with Shopify, right? Shopify hosted ecom versus building your own like Magento server store. Pros and cons for both.
Cost and time, scalability.
Yeah.
Cost, time, scalability. That's it.
True.
Everything is always going to come down to time, manpower, and budget in terms of like monetary resources and physical resources and time. Okay.
What about the purpose of a website? Because you go back, 10 years, whatever. If you had a really good website, functional, like for the purpose, whether it's like selling stuff or like advertising stuff, you could stand out. Whereas obviously now, as you say, like anyone can just rock up with a credit card and get a Wix or Squarespace. Like, do you think like the website in 2023 is like, how vital is it? And like, how do you stand out among like the crowd of copycat designs, all this stuff?
I mean, number one is, what is the purpose of the website? Is it to sell products? Is it for lead gen? And then number two is like, don't copycat other businesses. Like,
but it's hard though. I mean, you look at agencies, mate. Like every agency website follows a very particular like layout and like the types of content and the design.
Exactly why we're changing ours.
Yeah.
Like we've been through that phase. Now it's this is, no, I get it. You can't stand out if you do the same as everybody else. You've got to be different, whatever that is. So, yeah.
And what do you think about like generally, the importance of the website? Because obviously a lot of people now just use apps, and a lot of people now use like chat, like to interact with brands. They use social media to interact with brands. Do you think the website's best days are behind it in terms of like, functioning as a marketing?
Functionality, really. Even if you're like a Web3 project, you're probably going to have a website because the website is going to be the entry point to your project.
But do you know what I mean? Though you see, like before, people would always put a website in their bio, right? And you see a lot of people now just put a link tree, and the link tree will be, website, social media, e-com store.
I mean, it's the question is, in a sense, is do I think there'll be successful businesses that don't have a website? And the answer is yes, because I think that there's so much room to play within a digital ecosystem that I'm not sure that a website is necessary. And even if it might be necessary to people like Gen X or even millennials, it might not be to Gen Z.
Right. Because they're just opening TikTok, right? And they're not leaving the app.
Right, exactly right. Like TikTok, one of the biggest search engines on the planet now. So, and that the people creating that search engine reputation are the Gen Z. They're not using Google or YouTube anymore.
Yeah, I think Google's worried because, as you say, like websites is the backbone of that. Every website is built with SEO in mind to rank highly in Google. if people stop caring about websites, then, what happens to search? I don't know.
Again, I think it will be different based on like what your need for the website is in your service product industry. I will agree with you as well, though. I do think that there's probably a lot of lobbying from Google and Facebook. In a way, Facebook is still very much a Web 2 platform.
Yeah.
That are worried about competition. I think one side of that will be in Web 3. So Web 3 projects that, or in a sense, super apps like TikTok.
Yeah. But I would say, though,
is a super app.
I would say, though, the web is quite resilient, in terms of like, as you say, like Facebook tried to get people to buy stuff on Facebook. So did Instagram. A lot of people have tried to replace websites on the web, but they haven't been successful. So to be fair, it's been resilient.
More control and freedom. That's why they're great brand proposition places, because you can really express yourself if you're able to either do that or pay someone to do that for you. With custom CSS. Like otherwise, it's like you have to follow the generic template of whatever Facebook or Instagram, etc. is giving you. And I guess it's still cool because it's about how do you innovate within the rules of the game. However, a website, it's like you're limited by maybe your experience and ability in code.
Yeah.
These things are going to change, though.
Yeah.
What's AR experiences, VR experiences?
Going to put you on the spot. What's your favorite websites right now? Slightly awkward question, but
what's your favorite websites right now?
Yeah.
www.thehypeworks.com.
There you go.
That's really put me on the spot. I mean, again, it's where do you draw the line? Like Facebook.com probably is a high hit rate in my history.
Yeah. Let me take one. Which ones do you visit regularly every day? That's not work related.
That's not work related.
Yeah. That's NSFW
Google.
as well. There's not NSFW.
Oh yeah, I mean 100% it would be Google. Google's still actually I found that these days I also might bypass Google to Google Maps, because a lot of the time it's finding resources. Like for example, what is the nearest cafe? What is the nearest pharmacy, supermarket, bar? So what's in
your Chrome bookmarks bar? I think that's like the standard for a lot of people these days.
No, it's very divided for me. It's in folders for different projects.
Yeah.
So again, it's geared towards information. Re-accessing things that I think are important.
I do a scan of Google News. I think Google News is pretty solid for news, just to kind of keep up with current events. And ft.com.
Twitter as well is good for that.
Yeah, Twitter and Reddit. That's pretty much it for me. That's my kind of dailies. And obviously Gmail in the browser still good for composing
100%
emails.
Yeah.
But it does feel the web's got smaller. It feels like it's not like it used to be, like when like Wikipedia, you'd be on Wikipedia, you'd be bouncing around.
This is one of the arguments for Web 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Web 2. This is where people turn off. They go, you know what? This Web 2, this Web 3. I have a lot of people that can be a little bit cynical about this crypto blockchain space. I mean, as soon as they hear the word cryptocurrency, they think scam or don't buy it, don't trust it. But they don't necessarily understand the application of the technology. And it's the application of the technology that is by far the most interesting thing about blockchain and cryptocurrency, for me at least. I'm not saying for everybody. For some other people, I know it's it's about trading. For other people, I know it's about copyright. But for me, it's like, okay, where can this be applied?
But it's interesting going back to the web, because a lot of these crypto blockchain companies, their apps weren't like easily accessible a lot of the time because of various restrictions. So actually, they relied on the web to do a lot of their trading. FTX and all these guys.
This is the thing, isn't it? This is like the argument that's going on now. Let's just say that hypothetically, for people's understanding, there's going to be some like Web 2.5 kind of bridge companies between here's the technology of the blockchain, but regulated inside a system, like a traditional system. So you'll get like imagine that Revolut wasn't just a traditional bank. Imagine if all the value was stored on the blockchain, such as crypto.com. Okay, that's what crypto.com does. So they're like bridge companies, right? Because the fundamental philosophy of Web3 is decentralization. Decentralization and transparency, right? So that people can see who did what, and the information isn't held by one person that might be able to then have like some sort of advantage within a market. It's also kind of a little bit anonymous right now, that you can have an address on your crypto wallet that's not connected to any personal identification details. But if you go sign up with like an exchange like crypto.com, they'll take your passport. So again, these are not, for me at least, that they don't follow the philosophy of what Web3 is about. They do utilize that technology in a traditional system that's regulated
it's amazing how a lot of these things come back to the open versus closed argument, right? I mean, we're looking at WordPress. That's been an open source like thing since it began. They have a paid hosted version of WordPress with limited customization, but the core product is an open source product.
But I know it's open source, but the source code is still owned by WordPress, and this is like
foundation, some kind of foundation.
This is like built within a decentralized network. That might be hard for people to conceptualize. The good thing about blockchain is that you effectively don't need to buy server space. There's another advantage because it's decentralized.
I don't know. Well, it's an interesting one. I'm kind of excited again to get into web development because, like you say, like we used to do this a lot when we were younger, and it's kind of like traveling back in time, but it's fun as well, like to kind of build stuff, especially when you're just doing service-related work. You have clients and you got to deliver work. Like building is a different feeling. I'll plug this book, Tony Fadell. I'm reading this book right now. Rereading it again, and like he's just talking about building stuff, iPod, iPhone. It's a different mentality when you're building something. It's kind of exciting. On that note, we'll finish up, but we have to talk about Vietnam because
we're going in.
And what's your impression having got back from Vietnam?
I love Saigon, number one. Love it. Great place, great food, great culture.
Saigon / Ho Chi Minh in local parlance.
Ho Chi Minh. To the I'm not, I don't want to get into the politics of it because I'd like to please get back into Vietnam at some point in the future. So I'm a little bit ignorant on the situation, I have to say. I have asked a lot of people though, because I've been frequenting Saigon for more than a few times now, and I've asked locals, is it Saigon or Ho Chi Minh? And my own reading on the question is like, okay, well, the name of the city was given, post the Vietnam War to the communist leader. Okay, so that's like, but some locals might have an issue with that. Some locals don't have an issue like that. But Saigon is the original city, and the Ho Chi Minh actually refers to a bigger metropolitan area as well. So it's a bit like one of those, when people go, where you're from, and you say you're either Scottish or British, right? Or you say you're English or you're British, right? There is a little bit of that.
So no. So wait a minute. So which one do they prefer? The Vietnamese? Do they prefer Saigon or Ho Chi Minh?
I mean, it probably
don't
depends upon a multitude of factors, but a lot of people call it Saigon just because it's shorter than saying Ho Chi Minh.
Is it going to be the next big thing? Because people are saying Southeast Asia is where all the growth is in the world, which is true in terms of the numbers. So. Out of Southeast Asia, Vietnam is the largest, I think, second largest economy, I think. Is it after Indonesia? Something like that.
I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I should know. So I might ask ChatGPT 4 to give me a breakdown.
Yeah.
After this little...
I don't know. I feel like, 100 million people, like hardworking, smart, it could be. But they need to do what China did, right? They need to harness the investment.
Yeah, they are doing that, though. This is the thing about Saigon. When you go there, you feel that, it still has the classic hang-ups of those systems. Yeah. It's still very bureaucratic. It's still very slow. It's the same networks of influence that have always been there. It's the same kind of governance structure. But there is going to be an evolution of that, 100%. And you can see the money flowing in. The vibe is changing, The type of people that are going there are also probably different. They may be less adventurous than the people that went there 10 years ago, but they're still there to do maybe some corporate execution.
Yeah.
It's not the wild East anymore, right? It's not completely off the beaten track. It's a place where trade routes and investment are being set up.
I think a lot of people, especially probably our parents, they're colored by the war, right? Everyone thinks about the Vietnam War,
Maybe.
I think that's probably the negative sentiment in a way, but coffee is amazing.
For me, I think that I have a profound amount of respect for the people in Vietnam and their culture, and I really
don't self-censor.
I really I just love the place. Like, there's few places in this world that I could honestly say I could live here. But Saigon is one of them places where it's like, I could live right here.
Yeah. Yep. Need to go back. Saigon. Banh mi. Pho. Coffee.
Okay. Go on then. Call it a day.
I think we'll call it a day. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Maybe with a guest, maybe not. Just a quick one on the guests. Like the last few episodes we have guests. What do you think about that? Like,
get another Chad on. Let's get another Chad on. Chad, like the levels of information about his go-to-market strategy from somebody that has had a varied and interesting career with some real high points. It was great to hear that. So,
it's good, right? You always learn stuff when you talk to people.
100%.
All right. Later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.